Welcome back, Youth Empowerment family. Today on the show, we have Michael Hyatt. He is a survivor with an appetite for realistic optimism, an incredibly inspiring figure in the Canadian technology space. He was a self-made millionaire by 25 with his company called Daydem. He then co-founded Blue Cat Networks with his brother and has never looked back. He is a weekly commentator for the CBC, and most famously, he's a dragon on Next Gen Den, one of my favorite shows. I've watched every single episode in both seasons. Michael, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I appreciate your time. I want to get started with a little bit more.
Thank you for the enthusiastic opening. That was great.
Well, it's the best way to get started.
I feel empowered now.
Good. I should preface this. I sent Michael these questions, but he did not take a look at them.
I don't like reading questions before.
Why?
Because I think you want to get my spontaneous answer in the moment. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, then let me start with this. If you really knew me, you would know what for yourself.
If I really knew you?
No, for yourself. If somebody really knew who you are, what would they know?
That I like people. You know, that I enjoy the interaction. I give talks across the country, and I do it because I like meeting people of different backgrounds and different experiences, and like getting to understand their business. I think I'm a kind of a business wonk. I like to understand what people are doing, how they're growing their companies, and you know, I'll turn up to the strangest associations and talks, anything from finance to even like the HVAC Association of North America, and I learn everything about their businesses. I enjoy it.
And I suppose doing all these types of different talks has helped you learn a lot in all sorts of different industries that you can then apply to your own ventures.
Yeah, but I think it's about people, right?
Yeah.
It's about learning about what drives people and what people like to talk about. And when I give a talk, they might come up to me and say, I like your talk, but I always say, well, what part did you like? And what resonated with you most? And I like to drill into those things.
Well, the part that resonated with me most in your speaker's spotlight was when you brought up that you were a terminally ill child. The reason that stuck with me the most is because when I was a young boy, I was born 9 weeks premature with a twin sister, and I had a very rare asthma condition. Doctors didn't know that it was very rare. They just thought I had regular asthma, and so they gave me all the puffers and medication. I'm sure you're aware of everything that they do. But I wasn't getting any better. In fact, I was getting worse. And so I couldn't even go outside in the winter during recess when I was in elementary school, right? So my mom had enough. She was like, no. And so we went to Rochester, Minnesota at the Mayo Clinic, and they said, we've only seen 2 cases like this. But he's actually allergic to all the medication a normal asthmatic would take. So for years, I would just constantly get worse and spend more and more time in the hospital. And the way that they solved it is that had me sleep on an inclined plane. That was it. My asthma went into remission.
There you go. Look at you now.
Yeah. But I know that you have a story to tell somewhat like that.
Listen, I was a very sick child in the first 10 years of my life. I was in and out of hospital. I don't know how my parents survived it. I had dozens of surgeries. But it really made me who I was. I mean, I'm a culmination of just medical technology and this drive to want to live and survive. And I think that just kind of percolated through my life. It was very hard for me because I was always out of time. I spent so much time speaking to adults as a child. I think I got along better with adults than children, so I never really fit in. I don't think I really ever merged with my friends and really fit in until I hit university. It was all kind of strange for me.
I feel the same way. Like when I was 8, I was talking to lawyers.
Right.
So I want to know, when you were going through that experience and you face all these adversity and challenges, what did that teach you? Like, I know it taught me so many things about just patience and believing and faith, but what was your experience?
I was probably more impatient than anything else. My dad told me I was impatient in the womb. I don't think that it was a patience issue for me. I just think that I had this maniacal drive to survive and to win. Yeah. And I think that was just kind of, deep inside me. At some point you have to stop and realize that you went through a lot to get to where you got to. And but I mean, when I meet young children today or children that are struggling, I can pass on the message that sometimes that struggle and what you're going through will make you a pretty exceptional person. You just gotta accept that sometime your medical disability, it becomes a very, very strong positive later in your life.
Yeah, and you can see that as well with other types of adversity that people might face in their childhood. Like, look at Oprah, right?
Sure.
So I want to know, when you were growing up then, how important was family to you, and what sort of lessons did they try to instill in you that you still use today?
You know, as you get older, you start to realize, you know, you have very few things in life. You have family, your health, and maybe 3 or 4 friends, like real friends that are going to show up on moving day to help you move boxes. You know, and you know, and really, we leave this earth. We come to this earth with not a lot, and we also leave with not a lot. You don't take any of this stuff with you. I guess you take your memories. You don't take your money, and we're not here for a long time, but hopefully a good time. And I think that to quote a song, but I think I think that, you know, prospectively, life is about experience, and the fact is you can share that, and you can do a lot of things. But when it comes down to it, you have your health and your family.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. And so you went from facing childhood adversity to co-founding this Blue Cat Networks, and you hadn't taken a business course since grade 9. How was getting through, you know, high school and then making it through university? Were you so involved in your education?
I worked really hard. I was that student who worked so hard for a B or an A. Like, when I got an A, it was like, you know, over the moon, you know. And I remember being in organic chemistry, because I ended up doing sciences because I was told by my grade 9 business teacher that I wasn't smart enough to do an MBA, and it crushed me. I was 13 years old. It crushed me.
Ouch.
So I decided to go into sciences, because somewhere in my head that would be easier, and I could be a doctor, and I don't know, in some weird way, maybe I was relating back to my childhood. So I go into school to become a doctor, and I went through sciences, but I would get an 82 on an exam, which was like a miraculous mark, and I would work 16 hours a day for that. And then the next 5 people next to me got 100%, because you can get 100% on an exam in science. And I wasn't, you know, I would never be that, but I was probably good at something else.
And so when did you make that, like, when was the pivotal moment and you were like, oh, I'm going to go into technology and business?
Well, I left school when I was 22, and I had no job, I had no money, I had no strings I could pull, and my brother had written some software, and I had a phone, and I just started phoning the U.S. and selling the software. I did it out of partial mass panic and mass drive to succeed. I started a business, and I drove to start a business because, I know this sounds weird, but I just wanted to have my own money. I just wanted to have my own ability to be free and do what I want. And I knew that I could depend on my work ethic. So I would just outwork everybody else to get to where I want to get. And I did. And my brother worked incredibly hard writing software, and I worked incredibly hard getting on the phone. I mean, you might find this really strange, but in the mid-90s, the internet wasn't really, you know, what it was today. And what ended up happening was, you know, I didn't even have a computer when I started. I just picked up the phone and kept dialing for dollars until, like, I almost bled.
Wow. That's straight hustle.
Straight hustle. The only thing more hustle than what I did would be going door to door. And you couldn't sell engineering software door to door, but I would have done it if I had to.
I suppose so. How important is hustle in today's atmosphere? I know that you've probably used it the entirety of your career, but in where we have all this technology, where we have all these computers, and opportunity is so endless nowadays, where the only kind of, other than talent, the only variable is hustle and hard work.
Well, look at you, right? You're 18, and look at you. You hustle for all these interviews, and you work really hard, and you get them, and you're a really bright young man, and I believe that you can hear my chihuahua on the side here. I might bring her over for the interview.
Oh, 100%.
She sounds very upset about not being part of the interview. I'm gonna bring my
we love dogs.
Yeah, so she's gonna sit here. She's very protective. But you know, listen, you know, the harder I work, the luckier I got, and that's the same thing with you and everybody else. I always want to hire someone who worked really hard for a B or a C. I'm not interested in an A student who just got an A. I'm not interested in that. I can't teach motivation.
I gotcha. That's why they say, like, A plus students will end up working for B's and C's. Right?
Maybe. I think you cannot outwork everybody. Yeah. I mean, I once heard that Richard Branson, who I've met, who's a really, really nice man.
You've met Richard Branson?
Yeah, I met him, and he's a very nice man. And I hope I'm not misquoting this, but I think he's dyslexic. And I think like there's plenty of people in the business world that are absolutely exceptional, that have medical disabilities, that are B students, that haven't done that well in school. I mean, I think I'm right that, Einstein failed math as a kid or something. Like, I mean, there's a plenty of people that didn't do well, but I've always been pretty good at math.
Yeah, I was about to say you kind of changed the game a little bit in the science space.
Yeah, of course you did.
In a keynote that I heard you give, you talked about the 20-mile journey, and I've noticed that we're somewhat alluding to this concept of this 20-mile journey. Do you think you could explain that to the Youth Empowerment family?
Yeah, so if you're out there and you're starting a business or you want to get something going, know that you're not going to do something big once that are going to get you to where you want to get to. Mm-hmm. The people that make it in life are the people that have a consistency and a march. You keep you're going to get out there, one foot in front of the other. The most successful business people I've met just keep marching, small steps.
Yeah.
Don't look for that big awesome moment. I don't know. You say, what was the defining moment in your business career? Nothing. I don't have a defining moment. I have every day that I had to go make a call, do a meeting, sell a deal, close this, hire this great staff member, and raise money. There was never anything that was like, ta-da, there it is.
Right.
I mean, and I remember like every quarter or every year there was like that big deal we got to close, and then once it's closed, it's like next big deal. Right. There was never one deal that made us. It was never that way.
You've always you're always trying to go up, but sometimes you can go down as well, right?
Oh, you've seen the diagram. What success is, you start here and you get here, but really it's like this. There. I mean, that's how it is. Yeah. I mean, there's really bad and dark days. I mean, like literally psychologically disturbing times when you build a business. I'm a 20-year overnight success. I've been all over the map. I've seen, there were times when I was losing $1 million a month. There's times when I'm making millions a month. I mean, it was like that all the time. It was very, very hard. I don't think being an entrepreneur is for everybody, by the way. I think very few people should do it. I think it's a very hard path. I think that if you're very young like you should take a lot of risk and get out there and try, and it's okay to fail, and you're okay to do that. It's much harder to start a company, let's say in your 40s when you're married and you have a couple of kids and you can't take that risk. And now's the time, if any students are watching this, now's the time to take risk and go try and get out there and fail. It's okay. Go out there and fail. It's absolutely fine. The younger you are and the less obligations you have, the more you should be getting out there and failing.
I find it really interesting. As you know, this is the second time we've met, and when we first met, I asked you the question, if you could give any advice to a young entrepreneur, what would you give? And you said, because I was telling you about this podcast and how I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship, and you're like, maybe you don't want to, right? You said, so you said, take some time off, figure yourself out. So I did. I went to New Zealand, and
Did you have fun?
We can talk stories. I had lots of fun, and then I after the New Zealand trip, I backpacked around Australia from Melbourne to Sydney.
That must have been fun.
That was pretty crazy. That was a couple stories. I feel like you'd be proud.
Okay.
But what I did learn is that I do agree with you. Not everybody should be an entrepreneur, even if they may want to be, and that the perfect way to start is by talking to people like yourself.
Yeah, maybe. Listen, first off, I think you did exactly the right thing. You went and saw part of the world which is absolutely stunning, and you did the right thing. And,
have you been?
I've been in the area. I haven't been to where you actually been to, but I've been to a lot of places in the world. But you did the right thing, and you always remember that experience. And just on that, and to people watching this, try to spend your money on experiences, because that's what we take with us. Like, don't get too wrapped up in your watches, your cars, your suits. Like, just get wrapped up in experiences, and going to see really cool places in the world and experience other cultures and people, and go out and try new things, and that's what we take with us as people. One of the reasons I again give these talks across North America, around the places, that I get to meet new people and hear other ideas, and I find it exhilarating. But you don't have to start a company. I think one of the problems for someone your age or people that are students are coming out, I think there's a tremendous pressure to start a company and try to be, some huge
Mark
company.
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg. And listen, there's only one Mark Zuckerberg for a reason. I mean,
and he went to Harvard.
But you can't compare yourself to the outlier of the outlier of the outlier of the graph. If you look at the modal distribution, you have to start thinking that, maybe you should be entrepreneur, maybe you shouldn't, but it's okay not to start a company. It's okay to have a life where you have a job and you have experiences. I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure I see young people that have to start a company, start a nonprofit, try to become a White House intern the same week. And it's like, it must be a lot of pressure. Like I couldn't take it.
Yeah. There is a big pressure. And I think it's from whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Because I think there's going to be a lot of successes that are going to come out of this entrepreneurial era that we're sort of going through, right? But there's also going to be a lot of people that will get very disappointed. So when you are down, when you are struggling, when you're facing adversity in either your personal life or in your business, what keeps you going?
Well, for me, I think it was always an acceptance as there's going to be up days and down days. And I knew that was part of the job.
You didn't get emotional about it?
Sure I did. I mean, I think I'm naturally, that's the way I emote. That's my expression. I think that's normal for me. I think that there's this idea that you meet people that have built and sold businesses and been successful, and they never have a sleepless night. Like if I told you today, sometimes I wake up at 4 a.m. stressed out, you'd be like, why? What are you stressed about? You've sold your companies, you've done all this stuff. But yeah, you still have, it's still really hard. And what I noticed that when I was 20 employees and I was stressed, and then when I was 400 or 500 employees, it was, I had a different kind of stress, so you live with that, and it was just a different kind. And I think that it doesn't in some way go away, it's just who we are.
So then I want to ask you, Michael, then so you said you sold all your companies and you still wake up with these sleepless nights. Is it because you're always trying to reach that next level? Like what is the vision for you where you're at right now?
Well, all I'm saying is that, stress in life doesn't just go away at some point, right? It just goes into something different, and then you take on a new challenge. So right now, I'm spending my time building a family office and investing, and that's a whole new challenge, right? I'm just trying to say that for those of you out there that think that once you've built and sold companies, everything's just a panacea of happiness, that's not true. So don't wait to do that. Live your life now.
Gotcha.
And I'm trying to say that you'll never reach a time where it's just a sea of tranquility. It's just if you're passionate and you're a driver, I think that's always who you're going to be.
And you have to be realistic as well, right?
I think realism is the way to go. I think that, listen, realists make it further in life than anybody else because they get up and say, look, I'm having a hard time, but I will make it through. Optimists say, oh, I'm going to make it through, but they don't have an acceptance of the tough time they're in, right?
But don't you need that optimism to get through?
You should always say, I'm in a bad situation right now, but I am going to make it through. So accept the hard time you're in,
right,
but know you will make it through.
It's like a realistic optimism.
Yeah, there's a realistic optimism. People who have made it out of a very bad situation, including like prisoner camps and everything else, the people that made it out in Vietnam and as such, and people who made it out had this very realistic approach saying how terrible things are. But people just said, I'm getting out tomorrow for sure, and never did. You kind of die of a broken heart.
Yeah, and you almost set yourself up for an expectation that doesn't happen, right? If you're becoming just crazy optimistic and not sort of realistic about your situation.
Right.
You are very... So for those who don't know, Next Gen Den is sort of like the technology dragon's den, in my opinion. And so you're very in touch with the technology space. And in an interview you gave earlier this year, you talked about something called CRISPR-Cas9. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Oh, we're talking about gene editing.
Gene editing. And I wanted to ask you, how is that? I found that really, really cool.
Well, it's actually progressing exactly like many people think. It's progressing quickly, and it's creating a big debate. And for those of you who don't know, there was a discovery a few years ago, I think around 2012, where we discovered as people that we could edit genes very quickly and inexpensively. It's called CRISPR-Cas9, and it's an editing thing.
Right.
And the idea is, if I could edit an embryo early, the DNA, and cut out certain diseases, should we?
Right.
And I think a lot of people think we should, but do we start to make these designer babies, and is it good? Well, I personally think we will as people do that, and I think that we're going to cut out everything from potential breast cancer genes to debilitating diseases that are good. I think the challenge will always come in the next 10 or 20 or 30 years. What if we can start increasing IQ or muscle mass or running speed? Should we? And we may, as in Canada and America, say that's unethical. But if once science is discovered, it has no friends and no armies and no enemies. It just is. So people will do it in different countries, and they would start creating genetically advanced children. So I believe our future is a genetically altered human. Just where we're going to go. But in some way, it's not a bad thing. I mean, we haven't updated our software for 50 or 100,000 years. We have a lot of errors in our DNA. And being a sick child, I'll tell you, it would be nice if we could edit it.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. And where else do you see sort of technology advancing?
Well, I think technology is going to advance in a number of areas. And if you said in the next 10 years where we're going to see the biggest jumps, there's probably a couple places. The first is, like I've mentioned, medical with gene editing. I think it's going to become very interesting. The other one is we're going to probably make a big discovery in computing, like quantum computing or something like quantum, that's going to move computing power very much ahead. And if you look at computing in Moore's law, we seem to, every 18 months or so, when it's slowing down to near 20 months, double the speed, half the price, half the size, and it's slowing down a bit. Because in my opinion, it's going to do what it's always done since 1955. It's going to take another level up, and that's something like quantum computing or something like it that's going to make another big burst. So once we have much more powerful computers, we'll be able to design better drugs, right? And once we get real artificial intelligence, which is probably the last piece, well, probably in maybe 10 years or so. It's hard to say where we don't really have artificial intelligence today. We have deep learning. We have all this kind of really kind of not brute force, but that type of thing going on. Once real artificial general intelligence is discovered by maybe 2030 or so, I'm just guessing where some of the people like Ray Kurzweil at Google thinks. Right. If you combine that with computing power, and you combine that with energy getting a lot cheaper because solar gets a lot better batteries and capital, and be able to get capital is a lot cheaper. I mean, it's much easier to raise capital today than it was 50 years ago. There's a lot of money. There's going to be cheap energy. There's going to be much more powerful computers, and there's going to be artificial intelligence coming in. And you know what that means to me? Our future is going to be dramatically better. It's going to be a lot cheaper, faster. We're going to have, the access to medical care in the next 10 years is going to be dramatically better than it was for all of human history. And we, in the next 20 years, this is hard to absorb, I'm going to make this comment, we will move further than we have in 20,000 years in medical technology. Wow. Because we're going to have the ability to do some really great things with medical science because of the power of computing and artificial intelligence. And we're going to be able to design drugs. We're going to be able to, in the next 20 years, give you drugs that are designed or bespoke to your DNA, right? So these are the kind of things we want as people. It's an exponential butterfly effect. Right. It's fascinating. The future is literally, by computing power, exponential, and our lives are going to get a lot better and cheaper. We have some tremendous challenges on this planet. We have two major challenges. The one absolutely is environmental. We have a serious environmental challenge. The world is heating up a lot faster than we thought. And the second one, you might be surprised to hear this, but we have a massive fertility problem on the planet. Population's actually declining. And for some reason, people think population, maybe you just thought it's going up. Yeah. The population certainly even in China, in many cities, is declining because of their one-child policy. In Germany, in Russia, in America, in Canada, we only have fertility rates that are very low. We have fertility rates averaging 1.6, so that's 1.6 average children. If you follow 1.6 out, you actually have declining populations. You do, yeah. So we have a So it depends how you see that. You might say to yourself, well, declining population on the planet because people aren't born is a good thing because our environmental struggle. But
Right.
it depends how you see that. So we have a fertility issue and we have a massive environmental issue. And those are things that I believe will get passed. But because I think humanity generally gets past those things. Like we always get past big hurdles. We generally do things a little late.
Yeah.
But I would say the biggest security crisis we have on the planet is going to be the tremendous change in the temperature of the oceans, the melting Arctic, and the weather patterns. I mean, I'm not sure if anybody else looks outside, but right now all the leaves are falling off my trees. I'm not sure my trees believe it's fall, and it isn't fall. I actually had to wear a sweatshirt last night. Like there's something very strange going on. Yeah, right. And it shouldn't happen this way. I remember, in the early '80s, you would have 4 very distinct seasons. Right, life has changed, and I feel that in some ways, since we don't see it very quickly, as in just in 1 year, we're actually accepting this as normal, and it's not. And I think water levels are rising. I think that places like certain parts of Florida are going to have a lot of trouble. I think eventually New York will, and all major cities are located
by a body of
water because
yeah.
that's how we got there on ships and stuff like that in years past.
Lots of problems, but lots of solutions to come in the future. Which
but I think our technology, I think that artificial intelligence and computing power will help us find the right things to do.
Solutions,
and I think hopefully there'll be a global consciousness around this. Sadly, some administrations on the planet, some governments don't believe in it like they should. I think it's very problematic. But here's the good news. The good news is renewable energy is getting cheaper than carbon-based. So it doesn't matter what the policy is. Once it gets cheaper, people are just going to do it, right?
Yeah, yeah. I want to take the time now to get a little bit more tactical with you to provide as much value to the audience as possible. So when you were starting out and you were building your team, what did you look for in people, in their skills, and in their mindsets?
So I think when you're hiring people, you should hire the best people you can find, and you need to always find people that are just better than you. But you should find people that are high productivity and low management. The best defense is a good offense, and so what you need is to find people that don't require your constant management. You should have people that are independent, that push, that cajole. The other thing I'll tell you about an executive team, diversity counts. You need women, you need people from different background, and you need men, and you need a diversity because it creates a better opinion, right?
Yeah.
About where you need to go. And then you should make sure you create a culture where people openly debate the issues and are not scared to tell you the answer.
Okay.
One of the most backwards things about a company is that when everybody just is a yes person to you, you never get necessarily the right answer. You just get the answer you want, right? Because when you're the CEO and founder,
no one's going to second guess you.
Well, and that's the problem, and that's a lot of the time where you go the wrong way.
Yeah.
Plenty of companies go down the toilet because no one wants to tell them the truth. It happens to governments too.
Wow. Yeah, it certainly does, right? And what have you found more on like the hard skills of a person? Like is what makes them more employable, I should say, having really good communication skills, being good.
I think you got to be really good at what you do. I mean, the lawyer that I've worked with, who's in our family office, I've worked for 14 years, but he has an incredible attention to detail, and that's something I'm bad at. So he completes me on that way, right? So
you complete me.
Yeah, well, he does, right? But I mean that you should find people that complete all the weaknesses you have. You should only work on your strengths and hire your weaknesses. So right now, if you're not great at math, don't worry about it. You're fully formed. You're 18. Go and hire somebody that's good at math. You do what you do best.
I should tell you, I just closed the applications for people to come and join the Youth Empowerment Podcast team, and I was hiring. They're not being paid as of yet, but I was hiring for the things that I'm bad at, like audio engineering and writing, and not that I'm bad at those things, but I can't do everything at once. You know what I mean? So I'm super excited for the future.
Yeah, don't hire people that are like you.
Yeah.
Hire people that are better than you in what they do. Like, work on your strengths, just win with your strengths and hire your weaknesses.
So, working on your strengths. So some people might say that working on their strengths means they don't have to go to school. What is your opinion on education?
So I think everybody should go to university if they can. Here's why. I'm not sure I'm so wound up about, and 3 years is fine. You go to 4 years, do 4 years. But here's the thing. If you can and you can afford it and you can do it, go away to school and spend 3 to 4 years away from your parents for the first time and grow up a little bit. Go see the real world, because, you know, if you don't turn up to class, no one calls you, and you fail that class, you fail that class. You know, I mean, you for the first time you're an adult. Like, I never appreciated my mother's cooking until I went away and went to cafeteria food, and I was like, oh my God, my mother's cooking is so good.
I know what you mean.
I never appreciated my parents' car until I got my own car. And that first car I got with this Ford Contour, you know, remember this, it was standard.
Yeah.
But somebody came in and they put their feet on the dashboard. And I was
like,
freaking
no.
out.
Yeah.
How many years did I put my feet on my parents' dashboard? And then when I got my own condo, my first rental.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just walk into my mom's house with, you know, my parents' house
Dirt
with muddy
all,
suit.
yeah.
Right? And if somebody came into my first rented condo that I've cleaned and you didn't take off your shoes, I'd go mental. So for the first time, you have to grow up, you know, and you should go away to school if you can afford, if you can, to grow up a little.
Yeah.
So I love the university experience because it's your first time to play adult and be an adult, you know.
It's true. And, you know, I used to very heavily debate my parents as I was like, Mom and Dad, taking a gap year. And they were like, no, you're not. And so I didn't. but
you're in school now?
I'm in school now.
And where are you going?
At the University of Guelph Humber. It's a joint program between Guelph University and Humber College.
Oh, that's good.
So in 4 years, I'll graduate with the BBA and a diploma from Humber in business. And what I found is that although there is a huge stigma of you know, one of my mentors, Gary Vee, he always says, if you're good enough, then you don't need to, right? But I'm somewhat in disagreement, and more so in your aspect, as in, I think that going to a post-secondary school is very important because not only does you get the brand that is associated with your school, but you also build a network of people and professors that are inside your program. And if you think that your program is so good, they do too. They want to be successful, right?
I mean, you should always be working on your network. When you're in school, you should be out there building the biggest network you can. And by the way, when you're employed, build your network. Most people try to build a network when they're unemployed. Build your network every day. Yeah. And you know what the number one rule about your network is? Give. Get out there and give. It feels good. It's the right thing to do, and give. Don't ask for anything. Start giving in your network. Start helping people. Start connecting people. Start doing things. If you get out there and give, it's the right thing, and you'd be surprised at how much returns to you.
But how do you start building that network?
Doing what you're doing. I mean, you're doing it. I mean, I think you just get out and you look. The number one thing you have is the student card. Let me tell you how to play the student. Everybody watching right now that's a student, this is how you play it. This is the number one card you have that I do not.
Yeah.
I tell you, all the students should pick up their student card and go email, short email, polite and humble to any senior executive in Canada and America. I'm a student and I'd like to interview you. I'd like to meet you. And you know what? If they don't respond, well, you had no anyways. But a couple are going to say yes. And if you get that meeting, you sit down, you ask them about their journey, you be polite, and if they like you, they'll do something for you. And you know what? Use that student card, because actually the senior execs that I know would love to help out a student. And the only reason they don't is because they get too many requests and they actually have to do their job. Okay?
Yeah,
so but play that card, because once you're not a student, it's harder to say, you know, I'm a student. Like, we all want to help the next generation. We all want to give back, and you're going to do the same thing. And so use that student card. Get out there and ask. And if you hear no, don't be dissuaded. It's okay, because you only need one or two to say yes, right?
And it's not about like, again, you need the right one or two to say yes too. It doesn't,
just if you're likable, people will do things for you. And they're like, they'll call you 6 months later and say, it's funny, I heard a student like a mentorship program to start in our company. Would you like to take a summer job? I was thinking of you. I met you. You're such a bright young man. And that's how life works. Jobs don't go to people because they applied through the newspaper or whatever. Or whatever online. They get jobs because of people they know.
It's true. And my mother really instilled that into me. She has this a charity called Crafting for a Cure, and she's always said to me, Daniel, it's not about what you do, it's about how nice you are, and it's about who you know. Right. And that's the biggest lesson.
But specifically, you say, do they like you? People do things for you if they like you.
Right.
People want to do something for you because they like, I really like that young man. He was really smart, he's affable. Okay. I think I'm going to help him.
Fair.
That's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't take anything more than that.
Yeah. Wow. It's so simple. And I
So
thought
simple.
it was so complicated.
Yeah. Sometimes innovation is simple.
Yeah, and then I guess that really answers the other question I was about to ask. So I'll ask you a different question. What is your biggest dream?
You know, this is really going to sound bad, but and really
Well,
maybe
it's gonna sound
silly.
great then.
No, it sounds silly, but I'm very happy, and in a way, I live my dream in the sense that I built. I know that sounds
Poetry.
cliche, but I built these companies. It went really well. I'm happy. I work really hard. I have up days. I have down days like everybody else, but I've got a great family, and you know, I'm with somebody wonderful, and my life is great, and you know, and I have this nice Chihuahua, and
Do you have children?
And what's that?
Do you have children?
No, I'd like to have children, and I think that you know, I have a I'm very fortunate, but I wake up every day and I feel fortunate. I'm very fortunate. I feel very blessed to have what I have and to be able to do what I do and get up every day. The nicest thing about my life is that I can just decide if I want to work or not, or what I want to do or where I want to invest. I don't have to do anything or not do anything particular, and I've earned that right. And that is the nicest thing. So in a way, that is my dream.
I want to ask that was a very poetic answer, by the way. But I want to ask a question from the family, from the YAP family. It's a Facebook group that I created with people that are very passionate about the podcast. And they wanted to know, how do you define a successful entrepreneur?
I think a successful entrepreneur is someone who started something or happy with what they're doing. I think they're hitting their. I think there's a math side to that. There's a quantitative side to that, like you're hitting your numbers, and there's a qualitative side to that they're happy and they like what they're doing.
Yeah. I think happipiness beats the qualitative.
Look, happiness is a choice, and I think that at the end of the day, you know, you start your business, and it's a very hard thing to do, and there's a lot of very difficult paths. However, it's never been cheaper and easier to start a company than it is today. You know, I mean, just the fact that you have the internet and all this connectivity and everything like that is a lot cheaper to start a business. You can start a business with a phone and a computer, and you're there. You know, 20 years ago, you'd have to rent a whole place, have a fax machine, have all this infrastructure, cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
So it's very cheap to start a business today, but that has a double side, which is there's a lot of failure, but that's okay.
Right.
I think that, you know, entrepreneurs need to decide, you know, what's important to them. And you know, this is important. It's okay to start a coffee shop and just have one, and it's okay to try to start Starbucks and have thousands. You have to decide what you want. If you start a business and you make $100,000 a year net to yourself as an income, and that makes you happy, then that's the answer. You don't have to try to make millions if you're happy with $100,000. There's no, you don't have to reach for the moon and all this stuff. I mean, you don't have to try to be a billionaire. You don't have to try to start, you know,
Google.
Well, you don't have to start Google. You don't have to try to start Facebook. You can be happy with your business and make whatever you want to make. You can have 3 coffee stores, you can have 5, and you can have 1. You can have 5,000. But I don't know there's a right answer. I think
it's subjective.
But it's very personal.
Yeah.
And I think the guy or girl who has 1 coffee shop can be tremendously successful in that they're hitting all their goals, they're happy, their home life is great, their hours are fine. And then someone who has just started their own chain is fine.
Agreed.
I mean,
Agreed.
A good friend of mine started the company Freshie. And Matt Corin is very, very happy with the amazing speed that they're adding stores and bringing health to the world, and it's great food, and he's doing a great job. But he's very, very happy with adding these stores. But you know, I don't think he would ever have been happy with 1 store. But if someone started their own fresh salad 1 store and they're happy with it, they should.
And that's perfectly fine. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah. Before we get into the final questions, Michael, I want to acknowledge you for being such a positive person and for impacting so many, and for going around and talking to Canadians and talking to young people and things like that, and inspiring me and them to do positive things in the world.
Oh, well,
so thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's nice of you to say.
Final few questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Bring 'em.
I'm gonna ask you. So it's the end of your life. Oh no, terrible. And
am I that old? At 18, you can't imagine getting to my age. You're like, oh wow.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. But so it's the end of your life, and you have all your family around you. The kids that you've been wanting to have are there, but unfortunately, everything you've created is erased. Your companies are gone, Michael, and they ask you, we can only remember you by 3 things. The 3 lessons you are going to write on this piece of paper. What are those life lessons?
I think I would hope I'd be remembered for my kindness. I think being kind to people is tremendously important. I think that's probably one of the most important things we can do. I think being candid with people is important, and telling people the truth early and up front. Sometimes I think we do a disservice in life by not just letting people go on a journey that they shouldn't go on because we're trying to be polite.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the only thing that really connects us through space and time is, this sounds a little cheesy, but the truth is love. And the only thing we have is love. And, you know, I remember this movie Interstellar, and I love the movie, but really what I got out of that movie was a very simple idea that the only thing that connected these 2 people through space and time across galaxies was love. And I think, as cheesy as that sounds to some people, you know, our feelings are the highest form of communication we have. Our feelings are much, much higher than our intellect, and it's the only thing that travels faster than the speed of light, is our ability to connect on instinct and feeling. And I don't think we should forget that. I don't really think, I hope that I'm never remembered for anything in business. I hope people would just talk about the content of my character, and that's it. I think, you know, the money and the success in some ways very fictitious. And I'll tell all of you, once you reach this point where you've sold your companies, you've made this money, you know, it's a lot more of a hollow victory than you think when you realize that you don't take it with you, and that you just have your health and your family, and prospectively, there's very few things that really matter. You know, my father right now fell sick, and he's not that well, and you just get an understanding of what really matters in life. And it's the time you spend with people, the quality experiences, and I hope through this interview that's kind of resonated, where I think that you should go out and experience things. And, you know, if I talk to you in 20 years, you probably won't remember a business deal you did, but you're going to remember that trip to Australia, right?
And I'm going to remember coming here.
You have it on videotape.
That's true.
Anyways, I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. I want to ask you 2 more questions. You said you want to have kids. When they're growing up, what do you think is the most important thing you want to express to them?
The number one thing I would do with my kids is not steal their journey. In the sense that
that was right here.
Well, you have to let them have their journey, and you have to allow children to have consequence. You know, just giving them a safety net for life is a really bad idea. Because by the time they get to their kids, they won't know what to teach them.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, you can have the ability to want to protect them so much that they end up being a little not really functional.
Yeah.
You know, in life, you know, there's consequences. You can do what you want, but there's consequences. Sure, you can do that, but what's the repercussion? And I think that children should have a journey, and you should let them have it, and you should let them independently be successful.
Michael, what's your definition of empowerment?
I think people feel empowered when people believe in them, and I think that you know, when I meet young people, students or people out of school, if I want to empower them, I think very simply is that if I show that I believe in them, and many times I do, sometimes I don't, and I try to correct their path,
yeah.
I think they feel I can help them just pivot a little bit. What I found with people is you don't have to pivot them huge amounts. Sometimes it's only 1 to 3%. Just a little pivot gets them on the right path.
Michael, thank you for coming on the show.
All right, thanks for having me.